Exciting announcement today. I'm really excited to introduce the newest member of our club. And without further ado, I will get right into it. I will welcome to the stage Khalid El Ahmad, Sporting Director and Chief Soccer Officer, and the new head coach, Eric Ramsay. Gentlemen, quick housekeeping. We will start with Q&A portion. For media members interested in asking a question, please raise your hand. Ansley or Aaron will find you with a microphone. Would ask that you please identify yourself and your publication before asking your question. That would be wonderful. After the Q&A, we will have a brief moment for a photo op on stage with Eric and Khalid. Following that, the formal proceedings will be done, and if you want additional interviews, one-on-ones, let myself or a member of the PR team know, and we will help you out. We will get started with an opening remark from Chief Soccer Officer Khalid El Ahmad.
Thank you, Eric. I just want to welcome everybody to this event. Obviously we're all very excited to have Eric here. It was a long process, but very excited of how detailed we were, and ultimately it brought us to Eric Ramsay. I was also, joking with Eric that he goes from a red town of Manchester to the right colors. And on the record, yes, Man City is better than Man United. But no, we're really excited to be here. And go ahead and pose your questions. And again, really excited to welcome Eric to the club.
Thank you.
Jeff Ruder with The Athletic. Congratulations, Eric. Khalid, good to see you again. Throughout our reporting, as we were getting some background on you, it came through that you had opportunities to take a similar role within the English Football League. And I think Major League Soccer, as a league that is one of the few major leagues in the world that is younger than you and younger than me, as we confidently hear about our age so often. I think that there is something intriguing about you making this step in this particular league. I'm just curious, what, beyond the specific project of Minnesota, but as a whole, does it mean to you to start your head coaching career in Major League Soccer?
I've never really had a fixed destination in mind as to where would be the best place to start my career as a head coach. I've had opportunities to do so in England, and for whatever reason haven't pursued those. I just felt from day one that the combination of the club, the league, and the general context in America was as good an opportunity as I think any first-time head coach is going to get. I think I could probably speak for 10 minutes about the various angles that sit behind my decision, but I think if you look at this club in particular, everything that you would want as a first-time head coach in terms of stability of ownership, a sporting director with whom I have a really good relationship and definitely click from the perspective of how we see the team, how we see the vision of the club in general. You've got a really clear hierarchy, you've got really clear decision-making protocols across the club, and I think from a head coach's perspective, you want that very stable environment to work in. I want to work with the team, I want to work with the players, I want to do what I'm good at, what I've done up until this point with that added leadership element. So I look at this particular club as absolutely perfect in that sense. I look at the MLS in general. I think it's cliche to say in England that it is moving in the right direction and it's getting better, but ever since I've started researching the league in much more detail, and I have been doing so for 2 months or so now, I can't look past that statement. It is definitely moving forward. It has done significantly. The level is really good. I like the fact that it's a really multicultural environment. It's a multilingual environment. I think it will really stretch me in that sense. And I think the broader context of soccer, football in America in general, I think I couldn't be joining at a better time with the competitions that are being held here in the coming years. And I think I'm really lucky, I think, for all the stars to have aligned and me to be given this opportunity, and me also to be a point in my career where I feel as though it's perfect.
Eric, Chris Long from KSTP Television. There are obviously always going to be challenges for a new coach.
Yeah.
Normally you'll get an off season, at least a preseason. You're coming in, we saw you run your first practice yesterday, and Saturday, this weekend's game matters. What are some of those challenges, and how do you accelerate the process where you just don't have that time to get as acclimated as you would like?
No, I think I suppose the beauty of the interview process and me finishing my time at Man United, spanning say 6 weeks or so, or perhaps longer, I've been able to get really familiar with the players that we've got here. I've been able to watch the games. I'm fortunate that I'm stepping into a situation where the picture is fairly rosy. Obviously, Cam and the staff and everyone else who's been around the team has done a really good job up until this point, so I'm walking into something that feels solid, and I'm not doing it on a completely blank slate. I said to them yesterday when I spoke to them, I know them far better than they know me, because I've had the luxury of being sat at home watching the games, watching games from last year, watching the individuals on the scouting platforms that we have, getting a feel for the league. So I appreciate it. On paper probably looks a situation that isn't ideal for me to start in, but I don't really feel that way. I've been fortunate this week with the way things have timed, that I've had sort of a 4-day build up to Saturday's game. I wanted to get straight stuck into working with the players and the staff, because I think that's really the best way to know the players that you've got in front of you. I think, again, it's something I know to be true, that you don't really know a player until you start working with them. You really don't feel their qualities until you've got them in front of your eyes up close. So I think that the days I've had so far, I already feel like 2 days in, I've got a really good feel for where the group is, and I'm supported by some really good staff there. So it's a good picture. It really is.
This message is for Khaled. When you were going through this process, when did you first kind of look at Eric, and kind of, as you went through that and kind of where you're at to now to be able to hire him, how did you feel like those styles and ideas meshed in what you want for this club?
So I think even further context to Eric, he's actually a person I interviewed for the Barnsley job at one point, but at that time the stars didn't align. So as we walked into the process, he was, one of the candidates that I kind of brought in from the beginning. And the person within the process says, why don't you just go and hire Eric straight away, if you already have kind of gone through some of the interview aspects. But it was very important for me that whoever was going to be the head coach at the club aligns with everyone. It's not a Khaled decision, it's a club decision. So Eric went through the process, and we were all aligned that he was the number one decision. So him being here, it represents the whole club, not just the new sporting director's decision of bringing someone he might have spoke to before or had a relationship in the past. But like Eric said, from the beginning we clicked. I have a connection in not just kind of the way we want to play, but it's the behavior off the pitch, it's the standards that we want, it's the meetings that we're going to provide to the players. And I think he said it well when he spoke to the players. What's the environment going to be 6 months from now? So when you come to Blaine, or where you see us, you're going to see us hardworking, collaborative, and essentially all on the same page to hopefully, achieve big things.
Pierre Nugent, Fox 9. Eric, a question for you. Actually, and if Kyle wants to chime in as well. Cam is staying on as an assistant coach. Dennis is coming on as well. What went into hiring Dennis, and what do you like about the staff together as a whole right now to kind of round out the whole staff?
So, very clear again, I think it's important when you build staff, it's club staff. Okay, because we're all in this together. We win together, we lose together. And in the interview process, as we were looking at the structure, I had a conversation with Eric, how would you want that to look? Is there someone specific that you think about? And Eric did bring up Dennis, but even Dennis had to be interviewed to make sure that it's the right fit in what we want to do. I'll let Eric then speak about, the personal or the connection he has with Dennis, but if I look at it from a club perspective, we got Cameron, who knows the league, knows the academy, MLS Next Pro, has been experienced as being a head coach, so you have a potential, balance. Would Eric be sick, suspended? Hopefully not. But those things do happen, right? So you already know, so you know that you have that kind of stability. You then bring Dennis, from my perspective, educator, Trinidad Tobago, knows CONCACAF, been here with the national teams, he's been at Allianz, he's been at Blaine, older, which is also good in the sense of how that balance of the staff and the fact that they, he also has that personal relationship to Eric is a balance, but I think I'll add for you to talk about
he's,
it.
So he's widely experienced. He's been part of Roberto Martinez's staffs at Wigan and Everton as his career progressed. So I think that raw coaching experience, excellent. But probably the biggest thing for me with Dennis, aside from his personal qualities and his values, the way he is as a character, the way I know he'll be with the players in the dressing room, which I'm sure if any of you ever meet him, you'll pick up on instantly, is he's been a manager before. I've not yet been a head coach. I've obviously spent 10 years of my career in various roles, but predominantly as an assistant coach. So I wanted to make sure that in this role I had someone who's been a head coach before. Dennis has done it with Trinidad and Tobago. He's got some years on me. So I think he's here to push me from a management perspective, obviously to work with the players because he's excellent at doing that too. But I wouldn't have wanted to step into a role like this without having someone alongside me who's been a manager at a senior level. So I think based on how I've experienced Cam and the staff that we've got here, I think we've got a really nice blend of knowledge of the league. Cam, really good guy, very good on the grass, very good with the players, really intricate knowledge of the club and the players coming through. Me with my background and Dennis with the variety of experience he's got, I think it's almost a perfect blend of three staff at this level, I would say.
And we were talking about it even in the car, how that dynamic will be able to, for us to have this agreement and really push the club forward. We're all similar but quite different, both from background and experiences. So it's going to be a good group.
Eric, you speak fluent English, Spanish, and French. What other languages do you speak, and in what situations would you use a non-English language in training or on the pitch?
My wife sat at the background and is an avid proponent of the Welsh language, which I am getting there with. So I would add that to the list. She might say otherwise, but obviously my dad was a language teacher. So I've always had a really strong interest in languages. We lived in Spain for a short period when I was younger, so it's something that I've just continued with naturally and didn't really become of any consequence until I started working at Man United in a very multicultural, multilingual dressing room, and obviously the fact that I was able to connect with some of the players that didn't have great English, work in Spanish, that has stood me in really good stead, and I can already feel it in the first couple of days here that is going to be essential, particularly with the big group of Hispanic speakers that you have here. I've never lived in Spain and I've never worked in Spanish. I've never coached in Spanish full time, so that's a new experience for me. But in terms of being able to connect with the players really well off the pitch, communicate as to exactly what we're looking for, how we want the environment to be, and also understand them well, which I think any player that's not living at home, that's coming to a new environment, that can have an instant connection with the coach through language, then I think that will make a really big difference. And I've certainly picked up on that with a couple of the guys so far, that hopefully I can make a really big difference to their time here in that sense. I will also say you've got some really helpful players on the team. So DJ Taylor, Zerek, they both speak very good Spanish. Obviously Zerek fluent, DJ having learned, and they are immensely useful as a go-between. So I think the combination of me and them means that we can have a really healthy working environment where nothing's falling through the cracks. Everyone feels really connected to what we want the team to do, and everyone feels like it's seamless between coach and players, which is so important. It's a part of the attraction of this role to me. I wanted to continue to develop that. I know it's a real edge of a coach is to be able to work across a multilingual, multicultural dressing room. So I didn't want to lose that from my role. So that's a huge part of this.
Eric, we've seen a major shift in style of play for Minnesota United this year to a high-pressing style, and Khalid talked about how that's maybe the best thing for this club right now. How does that fit with what you want this team to look like, and ideally, what do you want the characteristics of your teams to play like?
Yeah, I'm completely bought in. As I said, me and Khalid have a really strong alignment on playing style and vision for the team. I want the team to be a proactive team, an aggressive team that plays in a way that excites the fans, but also excites the players. Players want to play in teams that want to be the protagonist, that want to be the dominant team, want to be the controlling team, so the team will work towards being that. Ultimately, we want the team to be a team that can dominate all phases of the game, that can control the game with the ball for long periods, but is ultimately a very aggressive, very front foot, very elite level defensive team that can get the ball back quickly and can really hurt teams in that sense. I think the team has shown a lot of that in the first 3 games, and we'll be obviously building on that, taking it to new levels, hopefully really consolidating and evolving what's been done through Cam and his staff, but then also trying to make sure that we are a team that can dominate all phases of the game.
Eric, Jerry Zagona from the Star Tribune here in Minneapolis. What does a coach learn from working with players like Ronaldo and Casemiro?
I think there's an incredible amount to learn from every player that you encounter at that level, I would say. I think I'll talk about it solely from a personal perspective so far. I had really good relationships with all of the players at Man United. I never found that my age, my lack of playing career, say, at that level ever hampered those relationships, and I think that probably speaks to the types of guys that you will find at that level. So those 2 in particular, amongst every single other player I would say that I encountered there, they're at that level for a reason, because they're top players. They know how to work, they know how to look after themselves, they know how to win. So I suppose in that sense I took from working at that level what you'd expect to take from that level. The players that hit that level are doing so for a reason, because they're phenomenal footballers, they are immensely professional, and they found their unique way to contribute to teams winning at an absolute elite level. So yeah, brilliant experience, and one that I know has stood me in really good stead for this.
Colette, I would imagine that the next major press conference we'll have will be about the 3rd designated player, and that is a search that you have said that you've wanted to ensure that the head coach has a role in. So I guess I'm curious now, do you have a sense of profile of player that you would be looking at, whether it's age, where in their career they are, position group, whatever the case may be, that as you've watched 270 minutes of the current season, and Eric, of course, if you have any input as well, I'd love to hear that too.
No, not really. I think, it's still in a kind of assessment review. I said it before, the most important thing is what's happening today, tomorrow, Saturday. We have a squad of players that, I think all have earned the respect and the time and have shown that they can compete at this level. Whether then the addition in the summer or winter is a DP or a different type of position, that's going to be, a review. You could have injuries, there could be potentially, sales. There's quite a lot of things that you can't control, and essentially it'll be an ongoing conversation. But it's also not just for the staff to evaluate, it's also how do we recruit? What are the metrics for the positions to make sure that when the player comes in, he's as good of a fit as possible to the way we want to play.
Eric, I'm curious, this is your first head coaching job of a first team. You don't know what you don't know, but what do you look to as kind of ideas or blind spots or things that you see might as challenges, given the fact that this is your first head coaching job at this level?
Yeah, I would say, I suppose, to go a step back, I wouldn't be putting myself in this position if I didn't feel as though I was prepared to carry it out to a high level. I was never in a mad rush to become a head coach. I never had a fixed point in mind by which I wanted to be a head coach. I wanted it to be in the right circumstances and when I felt ready. I feel like if you could design a checklist of things to do before you become a head coach, I wouldn't be far off having completed a lot of those, in terms of having managed an academy, worked at first team level, worked at an elite academy level, worked at first team level at a lower level before working with Man United. So I feel like I've done the work that is due before hitting this point. And I wanted to come into a structure where I felt like I would be supported, there would be clarity, and I could do what I am largely good at. Obviously, what I haven't had up until this point is real hard-hitting decision-making power and leadership responsibility. Obviously, as an assistant coach, largely you're working from a technical perspective. Your parameters are sort of defined by the manager that you work under, the club that you work for. So I'm now going to be much more responsible for those difficult decisions, those difficult conversations, and defining those parameters to an extent. So I'm ready for that. That is why I'm in this position. So I'm not second guessing myself really in that sense. I don't have too many reservations about am I going to be capable of doing that or not, because as I say, I feel like I've got a really strong base to rest on in that sense. But for that push from a management and leadership perspective, I have Khaled here, I have Dennis here, I have other experienced staff around me that will definitely push me in that sense. I'm not lacking in humility enough to say that I'm not going to need a nudge in the right direction from time to time. But I suppose I'm reliant on the fact that the raw skill set that I've built up until this point is what's going to take me forward, and then obviously the rest is left to people's imaginations and my imagination to an extent. But as I say, I wouldn't be here if I didn't feel like I was ready to go.
Matthew Johnson, Northland Soccer Journal. What do you like about set pieces? The game of soccer is very fluid, and set pieces allows for something a little different. What do you like about set pieces?
Me and Khaled have had the conversation a load of times, and I think maybe he'll chip in after I finish. But it's obviously a part of the game that, up until I would say the past 3 or 4 years, hasn't had loads and loads of specialist attention. But you're seeing at various levels of the game that it's a real edge. And as I would probably go back to the point I made earlier, I want the team to be a dominant team in all phases of the game. Yes, we're going to have a real edge in comparison to other teams in certain senses, but I want a team that is going to be able to dominate with the ball, dominate without the ball, and be very good on set plays. It's far easier said than done, that, and that's a big body of work, and that definitely won't happen overnight. But we will be a staff that will leave no stone unturned in making sure that where we can find an advantage, then we will, and that will be a big part of that.
Time for one or two more.
Eric, how do you look at the assembled roster, and Reynoso is such a key piece of this team, but hasn't played yet, and has been such a fulcrum of the attack, but it's been more kind of by collective at this point. How do you look at the team as a whole, and then Reynoso individually?
Yeah. I really like the team. I've really enjoyed the last couple of days working with the players. Obviously, that level of as I alluded to, I don't think you really know the players until you start working with them, until you see them on the pitch trying to carry out some of the stuff that you've worked on in the week. So I will reserve a little bit of judgment until I've had a few games to work with them and analyse and feedback. But I would say it's I can feel it in the first 2 days, really energetic group, really hungry group, really coachable group, a very talented group across lots of areas. And of course, with any squad, there's naturally spots that you look at and think we can improve, and I'm sure Khaled is well on top of that. And Reynoso obviously is a huge part of that, and I think with all talented players that you have at your disposal, it is for me and the staff and the club to find a way to make sure that you can fit the pieces of that jigsaw. So I think I've had a couple of really good conversations with him in the first couple of days. I really hope we can get him to a point where he contributes to the level that he undoubtedly can over a long period, because I think he, as all of you will have seen and know, can be a really important player for us, and will perhaps define how successful we are. So I think him, as well as the numerous other talented players that we've got at our disposal, are for me to try and make sure that we find the right way to use them. But in terms of the raw ingredients, I think there's a lot there, and I've been really pleased with the first couple of days.
Chris already alluded to you coming in after the season already started, and so of course you've already seen Minnesota United play, but you have seen the rest of the Western Conference, I would imagine, play some as well. So as you get a sense of expectations, goals for your first season, where do you see Minnesota United in the Western Conference right now?
Yeah, we want to build upon what the club has done in previous years. So we want to qualify for the postseason, and we want to be very competitive in the postseason. I probably wouldn't say much more than that, but I wouldn't have taken the decision that I've taken, moved my family to the other side of the world, uproot, leave the club I was at for a project that wasn't full of ambitious people, that didn't have resources at its disposal to meet those ambitions. And I think every conversation that I've had with people so far has skewed toward going beyond what's been done previously. So I'm really I can rest into the fact that the club will put the resources and infrastructure in place to make sure that that is a possibility, and then me and the staff and the players have got to do our bit to go beyond what's been done before. So, as I say, optimistic based on what I've seen so far in the conversations I've had. So, fingers crossed.
Thank you for that question, Jeff. We'll have time for a quick photo op with the gentleman on stage here. So we'll start with the cameras at the back. We'll grab the jersey, and the photographers can head to the middle.
This is an all-day live alert.